Well, just like Harry Potter, I think it was high time that I got a haircut as well. Because in Goblet of Fire, for some reason there were no barbers working that year. And then you cut to this year, Harry finally has his hair cut and has it looking decent, not like an animal. But anyway, random side note, I didn't know how to start this review. Let's just start it now. This is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is the fifth Harry Potter film based off the fifth book, directed by David Yates, who would be the director to finish off the entire series, and who's directing the upcoming Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It was released in 2007, which I think was one of the more mediocre summers in terms of summer movies, and this probably was one of the best movies to come out of the summer. It basically follows Harry. He's dealing with the repercussions of Voldemort returning at the end of Goblet of Fire, and he is almost expelled from Hogwarts for defending his idiot cousin Dudley from a group of Death Eaters. How the Death Eaters got there, why they were there, is not really explained. So he is back at Hogwarts, but things are really starting to take a different turn when the Ministry of Magic steps in and brings in one of their employees, Dolores Umbridge, to be a professor there, who eventually gains power and basically is taking control of the entire school. So it's up to Harry, Ron, and Hermione to gather as many students as possible to try and teach themselves how to defend against the dark arts, because they know Voldemort has returned. The Ministry is too stupid or afraid to face the facts and deal with the situation. Now, this movie is based off of the longest book in the series. I have not read it, but just by looking at all the books, Order of the Phoenix is the biggest, even bigger than Deathly Hallows. And yet somehow they made this the shortest movie based on one book alone. If you want to get technical on what the shortest movie is, Deathly Hallows Part 2 is shorter by 8 minutes, but that's the second half of the book. This is 2 hours and 18 minutes based off one book, which is the longest of the bunch. And when you hear about that, your first intent is, okay, they cut a lot of shit out. It's probably not going to work too well. But again, as somebody who has not read the books past Prisoner of Azkaban, I don't think there was much that I was confused on. There are little key moments that had me scratching my head, but overall I understood what was going on, and I think this is a really, really good movie. One thing that does help this movie is the cinematography. One thing that I've noticed ever since David Yates started directing these movies is that a lot of his shots and the way the movie is filmed feels sort of like an independent movie at points. Like the opening shot of the movie with a field and Harry sitting on a swing set as he's thinking about the events of the last movie. It all feels like something out of an independent movie, and it's pretty cool. I love how there's a sense of beauty in the way that this movie is shot. I mean, Prisoner of Azkaban is going to stand out as the most unique and creative of all the Harry Potter movies, but this one and the last three would do a damn good job as well. The actors are still really great, and we get a lot more character development with Harry Potter, who in this movie is also trying to deal with the fact that he and Voldemort have certain similarities. So how is he exactly different from Voldemort? It's a struggle that is really compelling as it goes on, and it does have an interesting resolution by the end of the movie. And also, I really love Hermione in this movie more. She's not really bitchy, upset, or useless like she was in Goblet of Fire. Here, she's the Hermione that I've been familiar with from the first few movies, where she could take care of herself, she is the brains of the group. But a nice turning point in this movie is that this is the first movie where Harry Potter really goes from being a boy to a man, in more ways than one. Yes, he does start to develop a relationship with Cho Chang, who is a character introduced in the last movie. But what I mean by he officially becomes a man is that this is the first movie where he's actually taking charge of a situation. In the other movies, it was usually Hermione that took charge because she was the one who had the plan. Like in Prisoner of Azkaban, she was the one who had the time turner and was leading the whole time-traveling event to save Buckbeak and Sirius Black. But here he really starts to take charge of the situation, what's going on. Even if there are points where you are a little mad at him that he thinks he can do it on his own, he still really does come into his own. as the one who's running things. And in a way that the third movie made me truly believe that Harry, Ron, and Hermione were best friends, this is the first time where all the students like hang out together and do things, and they don't just feel like kids together, they feel like a family. And it's really important for Harry's development and how he's different from Voldemort, because Voldemort will never understand what it's like to be loved, what it's like to have friends, because he's just so obsessed with being the most powerful wizard ever, and that is definitely a strong part in Harry's character development. And once again, more characters get a lot of time to shine. We get a lot more with Neville Longbottom. We see him becoming more of a badass. We get more with two characters that I've really failed to talk about in the past reviews, Fred and George Weasley, or as I refer to them as, the Beatles of the wizarding world, because they're just that cool. Win-win there. But there's a lot more going on with them. There's a lot more going on with some of the side students, and some new characters, especially Luna Lovegood, who is probably the main representation of Ravenclaw, which is my favorite house. And Luna is a really great character. She's just so odd, peculiar, and she shares a few similarities with Harry Potter, in the sense that they've both seen somebody die before them, their mothers. And despite any bad things that can happen to Luna, she still keeps a smile and she still stays optimistic, even if she is bizarre. Another new character we get is Bellatrix Lestrange, who is played by Helena Bonham Carter. Bellatrix is just such an insane, crazy Death Eater, and probably the most loyal Death Eater to Voldemort. We get to see more of her as the series goes on, but she's more important here because she's important for Neville Longbottom's character development. Because while Voldemort killed Harry's parents, Bellatrix Lestrange tortured Neville's parents to get some sort of information. Neville's parents refused to cooperate, and so now they reside in a hospital. And the moment when the group confront the Death Eaters and Neville sees Bellatrix, you can really tell that there is some strong hatred in his soul. And hey, I wouldn't blame him. If there was somebody out there who tortured my parents, I would not hesitate to beat the living shit out of them. But then we get to the character that I absolutely despise. I absolutely hate this character, but I think that was the intention. And given that that was the intention to make this character absolutely despised, then they did as good of a job as anybody could. You all know who I'm talking about. Dolores Umbridge. Dolores Umbridge is played by Imelda Staunton, who is the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, but an employee at the Ministry of Magic. And the way she acts, she comes across as very happy, joyous, but you know deep down inside, that is a bitch right there. She always has this smile going around, but she's very strict. She resorts to torture, and whenever you see her on screen, oh boy, you don't want to do anything else but slap her. You hate her more than you hate Voldemort. But she is a really great character in the sense that you hate her so much. I can't think of any other character in fiction that I just have a burning passion of hate in my heart like I do for Dolores Umbridge. Ooh, she just, when I was watching this movie again, I just like shook my head several times and just wanted to slap her senseless. So the movie does have some issues. Now, getting back to the fact that this is based off the longest book, there is some stuff that feels like it's not really explained. And I'm one of those guys that doesn't want everything spoon-fed when it comes to an explanation. If we, the audience, can interpret it for ourselves, then hey, that's what all the movie has to do. Like, the original Star Wars trilogy and The Force Awakens were very good at the show don't tell aspect. However, this movie has a bunch of scenarios that are not only not explained, but aren't really talked about a whole lot to give audience interpretation. For example, why did the two Death Eaters at the beginning of the movie attack Harry and Dudley? Why does the minister think that Dumbledore is after his job? Are Neville's parents actually still alive? A lot of this stuff I actually had to look up on Wikipedia to get the answers. So I found out that Dolores Umbridge sent the two Death Eaters, and Neville's parents are still alive, they just reside in a hospital because they aren't dead, they've just been tortured. But for why the minister is afraid of Dumbledore taking his job when he has no interest in taking his job, I still don't know why. So if you've read the book and know, leave a comment down below and just let me know. It's for this reason that a lot of Harry Potter fans aren't too fond of this movie because they really take a lot out of it. But I feel like what they decided to leave in was really essential to the key story, which was Harry coming into his own and the big reveal to the Wizarding World that Voldemort has returned. So I feel like anything that's incredibly important is still in the movie and is still easy to follow. And if I were to nitpick about one little thing, the kiss that Harry and Cho share, it is cute, I'll say that. But the longer it goes on, the more it's just a little weird. Because the way they kiss, it's not really kissing as much as it is sharing a piece of food, because the kiss is pretty much like this. And it was almost laughable at a certain point. But there is some earnesty in that little scene to keep me from completely looking at it as a joke. Those are pretty much all the negatives I have to say. I'm not as critical about this one as I was with Goblet of Fire. So this movie I think is really good. It's like probably one of the better Harry Potter movies in my opinion. And it does have a really great climax where the Order of the Phoenix fights Voldemort's Death Eaters and we get to see Dumbledore at his full potential. He's always been the old mentor to Harry and some other students, but this is the first movie we get to see him in action. It's like when we see Yoda fight in Attack of the Clones, except this is done a little better, because the fight between Voldemort and Dumbledore is awesome. You get to see Dumbledore kick Voldemort's ass. You really get to see why Dumbledore is considered to be one of the greatest wizards, if not the greatest wizard out there. It's really creative, it's action-packed, and it does end on a really good note. So Order of the Phoenix is something that is worth seeing in your lifetime. I really, really enjoyed this movie. More than I remember it when I first saw it when it came out. So definitely a high recommendation. It's worth seeing in your lifetime. And that's my review for Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Next week is Half-Blood Prince, and we're almost done with the series. So until then, I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on Order of the Phoenix. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you, there is only one.